Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel, Kalanati. Today I am back with another installment of my most anticipated book releases of 2019 series. This time I'm talking about releases from the third quarter of the year, so July, August, and September. This is actually a pretty short list. Usually I have more picks than this, but I just felt like being really picky about what I wanted to commit myself to eventually tracking down and reading, though I do have some honorable mentions at the end that didn't quite make the cut for the big list. But anyway, let's get into it. What are some of the things I am most looking forward to over the next 3 months? First up in July, we are finally getting This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I honestly don't need to know anything about this book. All I need to know is that these two teamed up and wrote it. I really like both El-Mohtar's short fiction. I believe this will be her first novel, and I've also really enjoyed some of Max Gladstone's novels in the past. I think both of them are excellent writers for language and characters and storytelling and everything. And the fact that they are friends just makes this so much better. I want to see what they came up with together. The very short description of this is two time-traveling agents from warring futures working their way through the past begin to exchange letters and fall in love. Which actually, now that I think about that, letter writing, a little bit of romance, time travel, written by these two people, I bet it's gonna be lovely. The other book from July that I'm really looking forward to is one that I've heard so many people mention in their upcoming releases videos as well, so it's probably not a surprise, but I want to read this one too, and that is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I just recently read my first book by her. I read The Beautiful Ones, which is a fantasy of manners, and I want to read all of her novels now, especially because I think they're all so very different from each other. I will have no idea what to expect as I go into each one. This one is described as the Mayan god of death sends a young woman on a harrowing, life-changing journey in this dark, one-of-a-kind fairy tale inspired by Mexican folklore. I want to say that it's set in the 1920s or 1930s, and all of this sounds great to me, a time period that I don't know that much about, that I don't usually read books set in that era, but also Mexican inspired with a Mayan god. I don't know. There's a part of me that really wants to find that Mayan or Aztec inspired fantasy novel that will just thrill my inner teenager who is obsessed with those cultures, but I haven't found that book yet, and I'm hoping that Gods of Jade and Shadow will scratch that itch in some way. Now moving on to August, the first one that I'm really looking forward to in this month is Reticence by Gail Carriger. This is the fourth and final book in her Custard Protocol series, which follows Prudence and her group of friends. Prudence is the daughter of Alexia, who's the main character of the Parasol Protectorate books, which is the series I think most people are really familiar with Gail Carriger for. So this is the short version of the description. Percival Tunstall loves that his sister and her best friend, who is Prudence, are building themselves a family of misfits aboard their airship, the Spotted Custard. Of course, he'd never admit that he belongs among them. He's always been on the outside, dispassionate, aloof, and hatless. Oh my god. But accidental spies, a trip to Japan, and one smart and beautiful doctor may have him renegotiating his whole philosophy on life. I enjoyed the parts from Percy's perspective in the third book more than anything else in the series, so if most of this book is also from his point of view, I will be so very happy, and I already have this one pre-ordered. The other book from August that I'm looking forward to is one that I'm going a bit out on a limb for because I know nothing about the novel or the author, really, but it sounds interesting and I want to read more Japanese literature. So this book is called The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. It is translated, I forgot to write down the translator's name, but I'll put it in the description down below. I gather this book is set maybe in kind of a near future where memories themselves are policed. And the description says, when a young novelist discovers that her editor is in danger of being taken away by the memory police, she desperately wants to save him. For some reason, he doesn't forget, and it's become increasingly difficult for him to hide his memories. Who knows what will vanish next? The Memory Police is a beautiful, haunting, and provocative fable about the power of memory and the trauma of loss. So it sounds to me like it might be a mix of a mystery novel, literary fiction, and science fiction. And I am curious about that because I've very much enjoyed hard science fiction by Japanese writers, but I've had less luck enjoying more soft social science fiction or more like literary science fiction. But this sounds really good and like the kind of thing I would enjoy reading, so I will hopefully get my hands on it soon. And then in September, all of the things. The first one is Joanna Russ by Gwyneth Jones. This is the latest book in the Modern Masters of Science Fiction series published by the University of Illinois Press. I've read 3 books from this series in the past, the ones on Lois McMaster Bujold, Ian M. Banks, and Octavia Butler, and I've enjoyed all of them. This series is basically a deep critical dive into masters of science fiction, their works, the themes running through their works, the context within which they were writing, and then their legacy and influence. And I've really enjoyed all 3 of the ones I've read before. I found them very thought-provoking, very educational and informative. So this new one on Joanna Russ, I really want to read it. So I'll read some of the description of this about Russ. Experimental, strange, and unabashedly feminist, Joanna Russ's groundbreaking science fiction grew out of a belief that the genre was ideal for expressing radical thought. Her essays and criticism, meanwhile, helped shape the field and still exercise a powerful influence in both SF and feminist literary studies. But all in all, I'm really glad to see more female science fiction authors featured in this series because they can so often be overlooked. I recently read Becky Chambers' most recent Wayfarers novel, Record of a Spaceborne Few, and when I finished that, I thought, I wonder what Chambers is going to do next. I feel like maybe she's a bit done with the Wayfarers universe and might launch something new. And then it's like the universe wanted to answer my question because I stumbled across her new standalone novella coming out in August. This is called To Be Taught If Fortunate, and I believe it's set in an entirely new universe. And the only part of the description I saved from this is, in the future, instead of terraforming planets to sustain human life, explorers of the galaxy transform themselves. And this is something I really want to see more takes on in science fiction. Usually the science fiction that I read is focused on how humans change their environment or build infrastructure and come up with innovation so they can live in surprising places. You don't often see the reverse, where we choose to change and adapt ourselves to suit our environments. I think the one really well-known book on this that I have read is Man Plus by Frederick Pohl, which is from the 60s or 70s, and I didn't like that book at all. So I am very interested in what Chambers' take on this is. I know it's a novella and not a full-length novel, but I'm very excited for it. Next up in September is a book that probably needs no introduction because everybody's been talking about it for months. It's probably the most hyped book in at least my corner of the SFF community, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. What to say about this? I mean, number one, I love the cover art. I feel like the design of this character on the cover is already launching 1,000 cosplay ships. I don't even cosplay, but I think it's pretty cool. But also the description of this just had me cackling. My favorite line from the official summary is, Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead bullshit. Yeah. So let's see, this says, this book unveils a solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. It sounds like nothing I've ever read before, and I'm here for that. And the last 2 books on this list are maybe a bit unusual for me. These are the kinds of books I usually leave off of my upcoming releases list when I'm paring it down, but I am genuinely really looking forward to both of these books, which I think will be really, really cute. The first one is Women in Art, 50 Fearless Creatives Who Inspired the World by Rachel Ignotofsky. This is illustrated profiles of 50 pioneering female artists from the 11th century to today. I have come to adore Ignotofsky's books. There are two previous ones that are along the same lines as this one, Women in Art. She's done Women in Science and Women in Sports, and I enjoyed both of those. I love her art style, and I love also her writing, but that all of her books are basically for all ages. They look like they're kind of for kids, but I think that adults enjoy them just as much as children do. At least I know that I do. So this one I'm really looking forward to, and I'm really excited because it's about women in art, but I honestly know very little about female artists, so I will probably learn a lot from this book. And the other one that was just too dang cute to leave off of my list is The Tea Dragon Festival by Katie O'Neill. This is the follow-up to The Tea Dragon Society, which I read a couple of months ago. I think it actually came out a few years ago, but it did its rounds on BookTube recently, and it was adorable, and I expect more of the same from the festival one. Part of this summary says, Rin has grown up with the tea dragons that inhabit their village, but stumbling across a real dragon turns out to be a different matter entirely. I know I'm going to enjoy this one. I know that I'm going to love the artwork as well. That is it for my more official list of things I am most looking forward to, but there are a couple of things that are also coming out in the next 3 months that I will be looking out for, but I'm not making any promises that I will read them right away. So some of these books are Redemption of Time by Baoshu, translated by Ken Liu. I think that this one is basically officially sanctioned fan fiction set in Liu Cixin's three-body problem world. And that's a great hook for me. Then there is Null Set by S.L. Huang, the second book in her, I think it's called the Russell's Attic series. The series was originally self-published and it's being rewritten and re-released by Tor. I read the rewritten first book, Zero Sum Game, and thought it had a lot of promise, so I'm definitely going to pick up the second one when it comes out. Then Annalee Newitz's second novel is coming out, and that's called The Future of Another Timeline. Don't know anything about it. It's probably about time travel. I'll pick it up when I see it. Meet Me in the Future by Kameron Hurley is her next short story collection. I am starting to get very behind on Hurley's latest books and collections, but I should make an effort to catch up, and I will definitely try to read this next one. And then last one on my list is The Return of the Incredible Exploding Man by Dave Hutchinson. I don't know what that is about at all, but at this point I'm going to keep an eye out for anything by Hutchinson, and I'm thinking that this book is a novel-length version of a short story he wrote some years ago, because I've heard this title before, far before this book was announced. So that is my list. Those are all of the things on my radar for the third quarter of 2019. Once again, so many books, so little time. Let me know if you were also looking forward to any of these, or if there's anything I didn't mention that you are really excited for. Leave me some comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.